Is that really a Kia? If I had $1 for every time somebody stopped me and asked me that question, I would have had enough money to buy maybe 4 of these things. The real answer here is yes, this is a Kia Optima. This is the company's mid-size family sedan. And many of you may not realize this, but it's actually been here in the US since 2001. That was the first model year. Now, building a successful mid-size sedan is really a tough proposition. You have heavy hitters from Honda, Toyota, Ford, Nissan, and to attract the attention of your buyer, you really need something that stands out. And Kia certainly has that with this model. In fact, it's become the brand's best-selling car with about 150,000 of these sold last year alone. The real question here is, does it drive as good as it looks? Let's find out. Now, even though the Optima's design is already 2 years old, it's still quite a looker today. The Kia's tiger nose grille, these angular headlights, and then of course my particular tester is new for 2013. This is the SX Limited package. And at the front, you'll distinguish it with these LED daytime running lights. Quite the trend these days. Question number 2, are the wheels stock? The answer, yes. These 18-inch chrome rims come on my SX Limited tester, and I gotta say, it's the real reason why people probably do a double take on this car. Now, personally, for my taste, I think chrome is a little too much, but it does go pretty well with those red painted brake calipers, which only come on the SX Limited. Personally, I think the chrome should be offset by some black inner spokes in the wheels. That would really make for a better look for me. When you get to the rear of the Optima, this is where the design is easily mistaken for an Audi. Head designer Peter Schreier just did an amazing job making this vehicle look much more premium. These LED taillights, the integrated dual exhaust, they all add a much more distinctive look. Now, just because it's distinctive doesn't mean you have to sacrifice practicality. When you open up the trunk, you're looking at about 15.5 cubic feet, and the seats are 60-40 split, fold down, which you can fold down from here. This gives you the most cargo room in the family sedan class. The interior of the Optima is actually just as nice as the exterior. You're basically facing a cockpit that is all driver focused. That's a really good aesthetic for a vehicle that looks as sporty as it does. Now, my limited tester has push button start and smart entry standard. This rather large key fob does take out a good amount of space in your pocket, but basically just keep your foot on the brake and push the button to start the engine. Now, the 2-liter turbo 4 makes an okay sound. Personally, I like the sound of a V6 more, but I'll get into how it drives later in the test drive. Now, the rest of this interior is all very nice. You kind of expect that when you have a model that's a top trim like my tester. You have soft touch materials on the dashboard, and then you have this leather stitch portion here that only comes on the SX model. The door panels are also soft touch, basically the same stuff from the front or from the dashboard. You get automatic up down for the driver and the front passenger window, and then a leather stitch portion here where your elbows are going to rest. Now, as far as the center stack and the instrument panel, the SX model has a different instrument panel. This one actually looks a lot better. You have this little small LCD screen that actually gives you a little rendering of the car. You can cycle between your trip computer here, your distance to empty, your average fuel economy. The center stack here has a surprising amount of buttons, but it is very well labeled. Kia puts the climate control on one level, the audio and nav system on another level, and then of course you have a 7-inch touchscreen here, which does give you okay map graphics, but one thing that many of you may realize is if you want the nav system, you're going to lose Kia's new UVO voice connect system. That basically is kind of a competitor to Ford's Sync system and Toyota's Entune, and you're going to lose the music jukebox and the Pandora, which is kind of a stupid thing to lose. It's very important for a lot of buyers today. But if you're going to get the nav system, it's an okay nav system. It's not going to wow your friends with amazing renderings or those drive-by views, Google Earth, anything like that. But it gets the job done. You have pretty good zoom in and zoom out. There's some decent graphics. The response is pretty good. The voice commands are good. It's basically just a nav system that you're going to input your address in and just use it. It's not going to wow you. As far as the additional features that my SX Limited gives you, you get an automatic parking brake with an auto hold feature. And then of course, heated and cooled seats. You don't typically find heated and cooled seats in this class, as well as this huge panoramic sunroof. Now, the transmission choices on the Optima are basically six-speed transmissions across the board. There is a 6-speed manual available on the base model, but my particular tester has a 6-speed automatic with a manual mode. And then in the SX gives you the paddle shifters, which are decently good in their feel. However, if you get the paddle shifters, you're going to lose the heated steering wheel. That's kind of a weird omission, but at least when you put the vehicle in reverse, you get a nice handy backup camera with some distance markers, but no trajectory. So the rear seat area is where a lot of family sedans are heavily judged. This is where the Optima kind of trails the class leaders. The space here is about average. The Honda Accord and the Volkswagen Passat offer considerably more space, but this is not a bad place to spend time. I probably would recommend it only for 2 people, as you do get features like heated rear seats, the vents back here, the dual map pockets. It's all a very nice environment. That panoramic sunroof adds some needed light back here. And then of course you still get a nice armrest here with cup holders. The only thing that I would probably advise you is to watch your head. That sloping roofline does get in the way. Now, Kia and Hyundai were actually one of the first manufacturers to start a new trend under the hood of family sedans. In the past, you could get your choice between a 4-cylinder or a V6, but when this car and the sister Sonata came out, there were actually 2 4-cylinders available. Both of them sport gasoline direct injection. That's what GDI stands for. The 2.4, the naturally aspirated one, is basically what most people will get. However, my SX Limited tester has the turbocharged GDI engine. This is a smaller 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. It makes impressive numbers, 274 horsepower and 269 pound-feet of torque. That's better than most of the V6 competitors in the class. And then Kia says you'll get V6 performance and 4-cylinder economy. This car is rated by the EPA at 2234 on regular grade gas. And then of course, those of you who aren't really satisfied with those numbers can go for the hybrid, but that's a different review. Now, one of the important questions that I asked at the beginning of this video is, does the new Optima drive as good as it looks? Well, that's a really good question to ask you. And you know, the Kia Optima and the Hyundai Sonata twins have never really been the sports sedan choice in the segment. But with this new styling, it kind of sets forth the expectation that this car does drive very sporty. And I gotta say, my initial drives, I mean, I've been driving this car around for almost a week now. It's not bad. One of my biggest criticisms though is still the steering. The steering still isn't tuned properly. It has a heaviness to it, like an artificial heaviness to it. It doesn't have very much feedback. The Mazda 6, the Honda Accord, and the Ford Fusion all feel much more sporty from behind the wheel. The power, on the other hand, of this engine is impressive. This 2-liter turbo really just has an amazing amount of power. I mean, with 274 horsepower, this thing has more horsepower than most of the V6 competition. Really only the Honda Accord and the Volkswagen Passat do have more horsepower in terms of the numbers. But my issue with this 2-liter turbo 4 doesn't have to do with its power. It has really good power. It has to do with the sound. You know, where for a family sedan, I'm used to the noise that a V6 makes. A V6 just makes a really deep, bellowing exhaust note. And this thing is just too quiet. It may actually be too quiet for my taste. Some buyers may like that. Some buyers prefer their family sedan to isolate them, to not make much noise, just once they want it to take them in comfort. And the Optima certainly does that. The ride quality on the highway here, even with those 18-inch wheels, is really good, surprisingly. The car, it isolates you from the bumps, yet it doesn't feel floaty like a Toyota Camry will make you feel floaty and stuff like that. The road noise in here is on the higher side. The Volkswagen Passat is quieter, the Fusion is quieter, but overall this car is not bad. It's an excellent companion to take on road trips. Another thing that helps on the road trips are these seats. These are the premium Napa seats, and honestly, I took this car on a 3-hour drive, and for the first hour I was okay. After 2 hours it started to hurt my behind, but you guys probably may be different. Everybody's body is different, so my suggestion would be take it on a test drive and see how it feels for you in terms of the seat comfort. This car really could use some driver assistance tech. It's missing blind spot information, forward collision warning, lane departure warning. It really needs all of that, so I'm very disappointed that it doesn't have it. Luckily, Kia is making updates for 2014, and it's coming, so those of you who are, who have a 13 model may want to consider waiting for the 14 or upgrading for the 14 to see, to get the blind spot tech. Again, the 2-liter turbo 4 has good power. It does have a little bit of turbo lag for my taste. It feels a little bit soft when you first put your foot down, and then once the transmission actually goes into like second or in the middle of first gear, the tires actually start chirping. It's an indication that these cheaper Hankook tires don't have much grip. But honestly, I think I still prefer the kind of smooth linear power that you get with a 6-cylinder. This Turbo 4's power delivery is on the lumpier side. That's where some of the competition comes to mind. The Ford Fusion's 2-liter Turbo 4 doesn't have this much turbo lag at initial throttle when you get on the gas. I think Kia has some work to do with the tuning of this Turbo 4-cylinder, but I am pretty impressed with the quietness and the refinement of it. Even at high RPMs, this thing remains relatively smooth and powerful. Now, with a powerful front driver like this, there is a little bit of torque steer. So those of you who like to put your foot down in the corners may need to actually hold on to the wheel. I mean, with 269 pound-feet of torque, this thing does have a pretty good amount of torque steer. But overall, the driving dynamics of this car are quite nice. I mean, for $35,000, you need this car to feel premium. And one of the things that I noticed immediately from behind the wheel compared to like a Fusion, for example, is the width of this vehicle. It feels wide. This car feels like it has a very huge track, and it just feels like it sticks to the road. I mean, at the price point that Kia is asking, the car has to feel premium. It has to feel more expensive than just your average plebeian mid-sized family sedans like a Toyota Camry, for example. That kind of just feels like a toy, honestly, compared to this kind of a car. And that brings me to, you know, the competition of this SX Limited. You could just get a regular SX, and it's about $32,000, which puts it more in line with other cars in the class. The SX Limited, however, puts it to $35,000. This reaches a new plateau. The Fusion Titanium is this price. The Accord Touring is in this price category. And it does give you some nice features that the other cars don't give you. For example, this particular model with the electronic parking brake has an auto hold function. Basically, when you engage the auto hold, when you actually come to a stop, it says auto hold there, and then the indicator, it shows that it's white. When you're actually going to come to a stop here, like for example, you're stopping in traffic, the indicator light will turn green. Once you come to a complete stop, it turns green, and then when you let off the brake, the car is not moving anywhere. It actually holds you there, and there are a lot of people that actually do like this feature. I gotta say, it's probably the ultimate lazy driver feature. Basically, to get going, just touch the accelerator, and then the car gets going. Now, with 18-inch wheels, the turning radius in here is pretty large, so U-turns plan them fully. Again, acceleration is pretty good. I mean, 0 to 60 times we're rated about, I've seen it between 6.5 to 7 seconds. Probably, I would say it's in that range. It's competitive. Honestly, the Camry will smoke this car. The Accord is quicker, but it's in line with the Fusion, the Malibu Turbo. Honestly, you know, it's funny because those manufacturers, they all like to say how these Turbo 4s offer V6 performance at 4-cylinder fuel economy. In terms of performance, the V6 models will still be quicker when you actually do drive them side by side if you put them in a drag race. But that brings me on to my next point. Do these turbo models actually give you better gas mileage? Kia rates this car at 22.34 on regular gas, surprisingly. You don't have to put premium in it. And I gotta say, the gas mileage that I've been averaging, probably about 20 in the city and maybe about 30 on the highway. That's about what I've been getting. I have somewhat of a heavier foot. People who are a little bit more conservative with the gas may actually get better gas mileage, but I gotta say I'm a little disappointed with the MPG. The V6 Accord, for example, is rated at 21.34, and when you have a naturally aspirated V6, you tend to get better real-world numbers versus the EPA's actual suggestions. But with all that said, the Kia Optima SX Limited definitely makes a strong case for itself. It is expensive at the $35,000 price tag, but Kia is making updates to this car for 2014 that will address my issues with the lack of driver assistance tech, the crappy navigation map display, and just the newer styling dynamics to kind of keep this car in line with its competitors. Now, even though this car competes with the family sedans, the styling of the Optima definitely differs. This car competes more on the line with the Ford Fusion and the Mazda 6 in terms of its design. And I think between those two, it's really about your taste. I think all of them are really good looking cars. I like the design aesthetics of this Optima with the LED daytime running lights. The chrome wheels aren't my taste. I think if Kia actually makes the suggestion that I made on the wheel changes, this car could be really, really good looking with the wheels. But anyways, guys, hope you've enjoyed my overview of this 2013 Kia Optima SX Limited. If you're in the market for a family sedan that's a little bit more premium, that exudes kind of a classy or I guess a more expensive ambience, check out the Optima SX Limited. But you may want to wait for the 2014 model. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll catch you all later.